Ukraine's breakthrough near Kursk in August brought a wave of optimism among Ukrainians, but it had little impact on slowing down the Russian offensive momentum in Donbas. In fact, the Ukrainian forces faced significant challenges in the Pokrovsk sector throughout August, leading to whispers about the potential collapse of the Armed Forces of Ukraine (AFU) frontline in this critical area. In this update on the war in Ukraine, we will analyze Russia's progress in Pokrovsk, examine developments on the Kursk front, and highlight other key updates from the latter half of August. Pokrovsk, the pivotal battlefield. Let's begin with what is perhaps the most critical sector at present, the Pokrovsk region. As a vital logistics hub for Ukraine's defense in Donbas, Pokrovsk plays a crucial role in sustaining operations in the area. It is one of only 2 railway hubs still under AFU control in Donbas. Supplies and equipment arrive via railway to these hubs and are then transported to the front lines through highways and roads. While Kramatorsk, another strategic hub, remains at a safe distance from Russian forces and faces no immediate threat, Pokrovsk is the cornerstone of logistics for South Donbas. Losing control of this city wouldn't entirely sever Ukrainian supply lines in the region, but it would complicate and delay resupply efforts, potentially tipping the scales in favor of Russian forces. Given the rapid pace of Russia's advances in August, it seems likely that the battle for Pokrovsk could ignite in the near future. Currently, Russian forces, including the 15th, 30th, and 137th Motorized Rifle Brigades, the Vostok Brigade, the 288th Artillery Brigade, and the 90th Tank Division, are making coordinated advances toward Pokrovsk. These units, supported by smaller contingents, are steadily closing in, setting the stage for a potentially decisive confrontation. 3 axes, the deteriorating Ukrainian position in the second half of August. The Ukrainian army faced significant setbacks across 3 critical axes, with its defensive position rapidly weakening. The Russian forces made substantial territorial gains, capturing key villages including Novotroitsk, Novozelin, Zavin, Skukny, Mezhov, Komishivka, Tish, and Mykolaievka. Northern advances in the north, Russian troops pushed along the Kasany Turets River, creating a dual-front threat to Rodivka by advancing both from the north and south. Their capture of Krychi Yar, progress in Krasny Yar, and direct attacks on Rodivka have placed the 151st Ukrainian Brigade in a precarious position, outnumbered and under assault from multiple directions. Southern struggles to the south, the 68th Jaeger Brigade and the 25th Air Assault Brigade were forced into a hasty retreat under the looming threat of encirclement, ceding control of several villages. Battles have now erupted around Seladov, where Russian forces are attacking from Mykolaievka and the north. With undermanned Ukrainian brigades struggling to hold their ground, the situation here appears increasingly dire. The Central Axis attacking Novoradska initially offered a glimmer of hope for Ukrainian defense, bolstered by strongholds, defensive positions, and trench lines. However, the 47th Brigade's unexpected retreat from Novoradska without significant resistance has dashed those hopes. Aerial footage of recently captured areas in the Pokrovsk sector reveals minimal destruction compared to places like Bakhmut and Avdiivka, suggesting that Russia relied less on heavy artillery and more on the swift Ukrainian withdrawal to seize these locations. Speculation and reality. The rapid Ukrainian retreat has even led some Russian military analysts to speculate about a strategic ploy, an attempt to lure Russian forces into a trap for a counterattack from the northern and southern flanks. While this would be an ideal scenario for Ukraine, the more plausible explanation points to severe manpower shortages within the Ukrainian army, exacerbating the collapse of defenses in the Pokrovsk sector. Manpower challenges. Reports from Ukrainian media, including Telegraph, cite sources within the Ministry of Defense suggesting that while AFU reserves have increased 2.5-fold following mobilization efforts, it has not been enough to counteract the relentless pressure from Russian advances. This manpower shortfall is emerging as a critical factor in Ukraine's struggles on the battlefield. The manpower crisis and disorganization in Donbas. Despite recent efforts, including a reported increase in reserves since May compared to the first quarter of 2024, Ukraine's manpower shortage remains a contentious topic. Azov spokesman Roman Ponomarenko attributes the crisis in Donbas not solely to a lack of personnel but also to disorganized defenses and exhausted, demoralized troops. He argues that the influx of mobilized soldiers has complicated the situation further, likely due to insufficient training and morale issues. Other analysts point to poor coordination of unit rotations in the Pokrovsk sector as a critical factor behind recent setbacks. Ukraine still holds several brigades in reserve, and deploying more experienced and well-trained units may shift the tide. However, the current pace of the Russian advance suggests that Pokrovsk could fall within weeks, if not days. The Ukrainian command may have no choice but to stage a last-ditch defense on the city's outskirts to prevent a total collapse of this sector. Russian advances elsewhere in Donbas, while the Russian advance in Pokrovsk is the most concerning, progress has also been noted elsewhere in Donbas. In the Toretsk sector, Russians have captured Zalizny and New York, making incremental gains within Toretsk. In Chasiv Yar, they have reportedly secured a foothold across the canal, a key Ukrainian defensive line. If confirmed, this would exacerbate Ukraine's challenges in maintaining control of the town. Additionally, the capture of Kostiantynivka and advances toward Vodiane have further strained Ukraine's hold over Vuhledar, which is already hindered by supply issues. Around Vuhledar, Ukrainian forces have withdrawn from Pavlivka, marking another setback. In the Kupiansk sector, Russians have claimed Sinkivka after nearly a year of fighting for this village. Stabilization of the Kursk front. Meanwhile, on the Kursk front, Russia has scrambled reinforcements to stabilize the situation. A key objective of the Ukrainian Kursk offensive was to compel Russia to divert forces from Donbas, potentially weakening its offensive capability in Pokrovsk. While some troops were redeployed to Kursk, Russia has managed to maintain significant strength in Pokrovsk. Initially, Ukraine's rapid advances in Kursk created a highly fluid frontline, with small units slicing through undermanned Russian defenses. However, by the second half of August, Russia had stabilized the situation. Fighting continues in three main sectors, Koronivo and surroundings. Ukrainian forces aim to reach the logistical hub of Rylsk. East of Sudzha, following their capture of Sudzha, Ukraine is working to expand control northeast along the A200 highway. 38K A024 highway, Ukrainian advances north toward Korchuk and Kromsky Byki are part of an effort to secure IGov on the E38 highway. Despite minor progress, Ukraine faces significant challenges in Kursk. Achieving a meaningful breakthrough would require additional manpower and firepower, as Russian forces now appear to hold a numerical advantage. The most promising area for Ukrainian success lies south of the Seam River, where three key bridges in Glashkovo have been destroyed by HIMARS and FPV drones, disrupting Russian logistics. Efforts to install temporary crossings are ongoing. Pontoon bridges and supply challenges. The destruction of Russian pontoon bridges south of the Seam River has compounded logistical challenges for Russian forces in the area. Video evidence shows repeated failures to establish stable crossings, leaving an estimated contingent of several hundred to 2,000 to 3,000 soldiers increasingly vulnerable. Without reliable supply routes, these forces will soon face a critical decision: attempt a withdrawal or endure an uneven battle against better-equipped Ukrainian units. While the ultimate goal of Ukraine's Kursk offensive remains somewhat ambiguous, key statements and battlefield developments offer clues. President Zelensky has described the operation as part of a broader military-political and military-diplomatic strategy. By capturing Russian territory, Ukraine seeks to strengthen its diplomatic leverage and destabilize Russia internally, undermining President Putin's image as a guarantor of stability. Additionally, Zelensky suggested that the offensive may have preempted a Russian attack on Sumy. However, the effectiveness of this diversionary tactic is debatable, as Russia continues to advance in Donbas despite Ukrainian efforts. Long-range strikes and weapons challenges. One factor limiting Ukraine's capabilities is the restriction imposed by the United States on using ATACMS long-range missiles against Russian military targets. A U.S. official claimed that such strikes would be ineffective since Russia has repositioned key military assets beyond their range. Britain's Storm Shadow missiles could potentially fill this gap, but reports indicate that American pressure on London has constrained their use against Russian soil. Given these limitations, Ukraine is striving for greater independence in its military capabilities. President Zelensky recently announced the development of Ukraine's own Palyantsia long-range missiles and drones, marketed as Kiev's answer to Russia's Iskander ballistic missiles. While exact specifications remain undisclosed, sources suggest a range of 500 to 700 kilometers with a 50 kilograms warhead. Reports indicate that this missile has already been deployed, and mass production could significantly enhance Ukraine's offensive and defensive capabilities. Despite constraints on Western missile use, Ukraine has demonstrated its ingenuity. On August 18, a Ukrainian drone struck an oil depot in Pokrovsk, Rostov Oblast, causing a massive fire that took Russian firefighters 13 days to extinguish. The depot reportedly played a critical role in supplying fuel to Russia's invasion forces. In retaliation, Russia launched its largest wave of long-range strikes against Ukraine on August 26, spending an estimated $1.2 to $1.3 billion on hundreds of missiles and drones. These attacks targeted critical infrastructure, damaging the energy grid in 15 Ukrainian oblasts. Ukraine's air defenses, including F-16 fighter jets, countered these strikes, but one jet was confirmed destroyed under unclear circumstances. The incident led to the dismissal of Ukraine's Air Force commander by President Zelensky on August 30. Diplomatic implications and foreign aid. The Kursk offensive has already influenced the diplomatic landscape. According to the Washington Post and Le Monde, Ukraine and Russia engaged in covert talks in Doha, Qatar, in early August. Observers suggest that Ukraine's strategy to capture Russian territory aims to secure a stronger position in potential negotiations while undermining Russia's domestic and international standing. Diplomatic tensions and border concerns. Reports suggest that Ukraine and Russia held secret talks in Doha, Qatar, during early August, where they allegedly agreed to cease strikes on each other's energy grids. However, following the onset of Ukraine's Kursk offensive, Russia reportedly abandoned the agreement and refused further discussions. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova has denied these claims. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to face challenges on multiple fronts. Despite being embroiled in a brutal war with Russia, Ukraine has stationed thousands of troops along its border with Belarus. This precaution stems from the fact that the initial invasion of Kiev in 2022 was launched from Belarusian territory. Recent reports indicate that Belarus is amassing troops, tanks, and other military assets in the Homel Oblast, including Wagner mercenaries who relocated there after Yevgeny Prigozhin's failed coup. While Ukrainian officials warned Belarus against any tragic mistakes on August 25, it remains unlikely that Belarusian President Lukashenko would initiate an attack after resisting Putin's urgings for over 2 years. Military aid and challenges. The latter half of August saw few new announcements of foreign military aid to Ukraine. Notably, German media reported that Germany might halve its military aid budget for Ukraine to €4 billion by 2025 as part of broader budget cuts. This report was swiftly denied by the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz assured Kiev of continued support. However, any reduction in German aid would be a significant setback, given Germany's position as Ukraine's second-largest military donor. The United States, Ukraine's largest donor, announced a $125 million military aid package, including HIMARS ammunition, artillery shells, and anti-tank weapons like the Javelin and AT-4. Denmark also pledged $115 million in aid, the Netherlands committed to providing 51 drone-detecting radars, and Norway agreed to fund the production of 155mm artillery shells in Ukraine. Despite these pledges, Kiev has expressed frustration over the slow pace of Western military deliveries. The delay has compounded the challenging situation in Donbas, where Russian forces continue to advance. Equipment losses and the road ahead. As of August 30, visually documented equipment losses reported by the Oryx blog highlight the scale of the conflict. Russian losses: 3,345 tanks, 7,661 vehicles, 286 command posts and communication stations, 1,353 artillery systems, 410 multiple rocket launchers, 127 aircraft, and 144 helicopters. Ukrainian losses: 907 tanks, 2,868 vehicles, 20 command posts and communication stations, 636 artillery systems, 78 multiple rocket launchers, 99 aircraft, and 48 helicopters. While part of Ukraine's struggles in Donbas can be attributed to the slow arrival of Western aid, some critics argue that delays in implementing unpopular decisions, such as timely mobilization, have also played a role. The coming weeks will reveal whether Ukraine can halt the Russian advance and stabilize its defenses.